Hey, Marshall.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Do you want to talk about Lost?
I do.
That's great. You've come to the right place. Because this is Jungle of Mystery, and that's kind of what we do here.
Excellent. I am excited to talk about this episode because, boy, is there some stuff.
This week we are talking about Episode 2, which is Pilot Part 2. This one kind of starts right in the middle of the action, because when this aired, it obviously would have aired right after Pilot Part 1, so there would not have been a week break like there usually is.
A not interesting title for a very interesting episode of the TV show.
Yes. Another fun thing is we're recording this one together in the same room, which...
Yes, this is our first time recording at the same time, and we've tried many different iterations of this to get it to sound a certain way, and at a certain point we decided to wing it, so here we are.
Here we are.
But we do have new microphones that allow us to have a little more flexibility with recording, so there should be hopefully less mouth sounds to edit and stuff like that, so hopefully it'll be cleaner.
All right. So, Pilot Part 2, we open checking on the transceiver that we just found in the plane. It is not working, which we will address later.
Yep.
But we have a flashback to the plane, and this time it focuses on Charlie. We see Charlie push past Jack and Shannon on his way up to the bathroom, where he is doing...
Heroin!
Heroin, our musician's drug. We talked about last
drug.
week.
Yeah, I was not expecting heroin. I was expecting coke, but I also wasn't expecting him to be rubbing heroin into his gums. So there's that. There's something also that I noticed when he was tapping. And I have no idea if there was any connection with here, but it sounded almost like he was tapping some of the numbers. Because he was tapping like random sequences. So I don't know if he was actually tapping the numbers or if it was just like something to focus on. But...
You know what? That's not something that I've picked up on. If we were to go back and count, maybe he would have been.
What were the numbers again?
4, 8, 15, 16.
Okay. The only one he did out of those was 4. So
yeah, maybe 4. Okay.
It was just 4. But...
Well, good catch. Good catch.
And the other thing was that when he's in the bathroom is right before the plane goes down, essentially.
Right, yeah.
And as the plane goes down, it really sounds to me like the mechanical sounds of the plane match the tapping he was.
Okay.
So it's like a rattling noise, but it's like this asynchronous.
Okay, that's very cool.
So.
I did not pick up on that.
So I might really just be grasping at straws here because I'm so suspect of everything in this show.
Yeah, no, that's good. Like I said, that's good. One thing that I've always thought is kind of weird in this scene is we see him, obviously walking a really long way from where he's seated up to that front bathroom because he's trying a bunch of different doors on the way, and it's not till he gets to the very front. But then when the turbulence hits, it doesn't seem like he goes back very far in the plane.
Correct.
And yet he was in the middle section with everyone else, right? When it crashes.
Oh, that's a good point.
So it just, I don't know if that's, obviously that doesn't have any kind of secret meaning. I don't know if it's just a little error or if they maybe there's an extended deleted scene where we see him running back further. But it seemed like he didn't go back very far. It almost seemed like he would have still been in the cockpit and front area. But
I've also never seen in a plane, and I've done, I think, 7 intercontinental flights. I've never seen a plane that has a divider with a huge pane of glass in it. I thought that was very interesting. It had the big pane of glass with the Oceanic logo. Yeah. But I've also only been in business class once, so that might be something more common for the, not for the proletariat.
Yeah. So the plane crashes. We flash back to the island. We see Shannon sunbathing, and she does a little bonding with pregnant woman, Claire. We learn that Boone and Shannon are brother and sister. And that's not what you thought, right?
Nope, I thought they were boyfriend and girlfriend, so... But they were bickering, so it's, it's not gross, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
They were just arguing with each other, so... She
says Boone is God's friggin' gift to humanity.
Yep.
Which I love. Claire has not felt the baby move since yesterday, which is very bad if you were that pregnant. You should be feeling the baby move a lot, all the time.
They established she's 8 months pregnant, correct?
8 months pregnant, yeah. Okay. I think they said that in part 1.
Yep. Part 1.
And she says she doesn't know yet if it's a boy or a girl, which she thought was kind of odd, right?
I thought that was weird. I guess there are people I know that there are people that don't want to know until the birth, but the way she said it was that she didn't know yet, as if, she still wanted to before the birth. But
okay.
I maybe it's just she's waiting until the birth to find out.
Yeah.
But, I understand, at least from talking to you as a mother,
yes.
That has had the sex tested, and you can do that
Right,
at the
but
first
it is
trimester.
also very common to just decide not to do that and decide. I know several people who, by choice, just waited until birth to find out, and we'll find out why she doesn't know and why she hasn't found out yet.
Okay.
We see a quick scene of Michael looking for Walt, which just made me chuckle because that's going to be a pretty common theme.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is
Michael not knowing where Walt is.
Is this going to be like in The Walking Dead where the sheriff is always trying to, Carl,
get in the house, Carl!
Get in the house.
Yes, Michael wondering where Walt is very much a Carl, get in the house
Okay.
theme. We see Jen and Son. That Jen is Son's husband. I think we have not learned his name yet, but there you go.
Okay, Jen and Son. Gotcha.
Jen and Son, we see a pretty tense moment between them as he's preparing some food. She looks like she's either trying to help him or maybe have a bite of food, God forbid.
Yeah, and he swats her hand away.
Yeah, he swats her hand away.
I'm still not 100% sure about their relationship. At first I thought he was just being like a male chauvinist, but maybe it's more complicated because he is gathering food to feed other people, so it's...
Right.
And he was offering the food to other women.
Yeah,
so...
it's a little bit of a shock when we see that he's preparing that food, especially after part 1 where he says we're sticking together, right?
Yes, and
when
don't
then we
worry
see
about anybody
him
else.
offering food to other people, so that's kind of interesting. I think we're kind of seeing in this episode people like, damn, we're on day 2 now. I think a lot of people didn't think there was going to be a day 2. They thought they would have been rescued already. So maybe he's like, okay, we do need to
pitch in.
kind of, if not make friends, then not be openly hostile because we might need these people.
Could also be ulterior motives to that, but
right.
we don't know at this point.
But we see a lot of things that change a little bit from part 1, I think, simply due to the fact that people are kind of shocked that they're
Reality
still there.
is setting in.
Yeah. We see Walt looking for Vincent, his dog.
Yep.
And he finds handcuffs.
Finds some handcuffs, and the handcuffs do like they're like a triple agent in this episode almost. Or at least the episode changes who you think the handcuffs belong to multiple times.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting because sometimes that stuff takes longer to pay off, but they made you second guess yourself twice.
Did you have an initial guess when we first saw those handcuffs? Was there a character that popped into your head?
My first thought was Jack, but that's only because Jack literally does and is involved in everything.
He's so perfect in every way.
Yeah, so he either broke out of the handcuffs.
That's interesting.
Or he had handcuffs in his baggage for some horrible...
He's also an undercover cop.
Yeah, or he has a strange... bedroom tastes. Well, not strange.
Oh, okay.
Different bedroom tastes. I don't want to kink shame anybody.
Oh my god.
But so yeah, my first thought was Jack. I would never have guessed who it ended up being, which we will get to.
Right. So clearly, Michael then brings these handcuffs back and makes everyone aware because our next shot is an intense fist fight with that great Foley work that we talked about for the promo.
Yes.
Just loud slapping, punching noises between Sawyer and Saeed.
Lots of grunting and
grunting.
Very intense fight with
Bam,
some very
pow.
very very quick cuts from punch to punch.
Yeah.
So Sawyer. Well, we know his name is Sawyer now. Sawyer and Saeed were fighting. I guess because Sawyer thinks Saeed is a terrorist, essentially because
Sawyer's
he's
a
Arab.
bit of an asshole.
He's
and,
stereotyping
some
Saeed
profiling.
pretty hard.
Yeah. I think Saeed says something like, "Oh, thanks for monitoring my behavior." Or something. Yeah. So we get a pretty intense fist fight between them that's broken up by Kate saying, "Hey, shut up! Somebody help us fix this transceiver."
Yep.
And Saeed offers to help, and Sawyer's like, "Oh, of course." But so Saeed is going to help figure out what's wrong with the transceiver and get it working. So we see him working on it, and I love this exchange between Hurley and Saeed.
This exchange between Hurley and Saeed is very interesting because it's basically an interesting way to find out. It's how they're getting more of the backstory, but
right.
Hurley asks him, how do you know how to fix this? And he says he was a communications officer.
Yes.
In the Gulf War, and Hurley says, "Oh, I had a buddy that fought. He was in the U.S. Army." And he asked Saeed, "What were you in?" And he says, "The Republican Guard."
The Republican Guard,
which was the Iraqi side of that conflict. So it's very interesting. We know that Saeed was on the other side of the Gulf War.
Right. And I think I like that the camera kind of stays on Hurley for a minute in that scene. I feel like we kind of see the moment where he decides, okay, I'm not going to let that bother me, right? I came over here to make friends with this guy. They have kind of an awkward exchange there, but they're going to be friends.
Hurley so far is kind of the thing in the show that's he's like getting more out of other people because he's like pretty approachable and like I'm just a nice guy, so he can get people to open up.
Yeah.
So it's a clever way they're using his character to get more information from the other characters.
Right. And he's kind of a very good stand-in character for the audience. A lot of the times in the show, he'll say what the audience is thinking.
Okay.
Like if someone's being an asshole, or if there's kind of a common theory that a lot of people have at the time, he'll kind of be like, hey, I wonder if this is what's going on. Yeah. And it's pretty cute. And it fits so well with his character. It doesn't feel like it's...
He's very likable.
Yeah. So Saeed suggests to Kate that they need to try to get to higher ground to get a signal out of the transceiver. And then there's that really just gratuitously long pan as Kate is looking all the way up to the highest point of the island. And it's like, all right, here we go.
They do, I think,
it's
3
like a 10
cuts.
second.
They do they cut to the scenery, cut back. Cut to the scenery, cut back, cut to the scenery, and cut back again. As they show everyone realizing, wow, we have a really long way to climb.
Really long way.
And it's interesting because up until that point, we haven't seen as much, I think, distinct topography of the island. Like,
right.
We had a silhouette shot at night when they first heard the jungle noises. We've had like the shots on the beach that show some, but not like a lot. But this shows like a huge a ridge, I guess.
Yeah.
That goes up way very high.
It's a big island.
Yes.
Of course, before we go on our hike, we have to check in with Jack. Kate's got to get his permission to go on this hike.
That's so weird.
No, very clearly, I think they have a connection. I think maybe too early to call it a romantic connection, but sure feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something there. I don't see why they had to do it, but I don't know.
Yeah,
but I'm sure it comes into play later. But it is weird that like you've only been on this island for 2 days. He asked you to sew up a wound on his back, and now you're like,
well, that's kind of an intimate thing. And then they had that near-death experience together, right?
That's true.
Running from the monster. Or
that's fair.
Jungle noises.
The monster.
Jungle noises. Scary thing that killed the pilot. Okay. General terms.
I'm suspicious of every word you say. So,
sorry about that.
So watch your vocabulary.
That was a close one. I'm sorry.
Yes.
So Jack is not going to be joining on this hike. He wants her to not go because he wants her to be safe. But he is too busy on this man with shrapnel.
Who we learn who he is.
Yeah.
At the very end, essentially.
The Marshal.
The Marshal.
So Kate says, I thought you were just going to leave his wound alone. And Jack says, well, I thought we were going to be in a hospital by now, so I need to get this out. So that's kind of where we leave him for the episode. We see him a couple times, but... And
we talked previous episode about how I was like, I'm suspicious of her saying, oh, it was just a guy I was sitting next to. Her concern,
yeah.
And I was like, well, I think there's a little something more there. And then
I tried so hard to make you think it was nothing.
They immediately are like, oh yeah, there's definitely something more there. Like, this is the guy that's guarding her. Like,
right.
We find that out.
Right, yeah. I tried so hard. I was like, well, maybe,
You did a good job because it left it open-ended. And then as soon as we saw it, I was like, okay.
Yeah. We see, this is the scene where we see Jin offering seafood to people.
Yes.
He slaps Sun's hand away as she tries to help. And earlier in the episode, he had yelled at her to button the top button of her already very conservative sweater. And then, as he walks away, she kind of defiantly unbuttons that button. So,
and who's she talking to when he asked her to do the button up?
Michael. It's as Michael is looking for Walt. And he approaches her, and she's kind of like,
and they
apparently
don't speak any
English, right?
They're Korean, right?
Right, yeah. Okay. So he's, yelling at her that whole time to button up her sweater, and now as he walks away, she unbuttons it and gives him a, I'm not taking your crap anymore kind of look. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see that go somewhere. We see Michael trying and failing to bond with Walt.
Yeah, that was rough. really, like, when we get back, we'll get you another dog.
Probably, like, the worst thing you could say to a child who's just lost their dog.
Yeah.
But we kind of learn later in the episode, I think, the reason for that, right? As Walt is talking to Ball's man, right, we learn that he lives with his mom. But that his mom just died.
And his mom just died because she was sick.
So...
his mom lived in Australia.
Right.
And then the old man comments on the fact that he doesn't have an accent.
Yeah.
And he says, well, we moved a lot.
Right.
Walt says we moved a lot.
Yeah.
Which is pretty nondescript, and I assume that will be explained more.
We'll learn more. Yeah, we will learn more, and especially about why their relationship is so strained. There's a reason for that.
I assume, have they established that Walt is his son and not that just that he's a caretaker?
They have not officially established that, I guess.
Said that.
Yeah.
it appears to be that he is Michael's son. Well, it's Michael's son.
Yeah. Okay. We have an argument between Shannon and Boone where Shannon is finally kind of letting herself feel the trauma of what's happened.
Yes.
But still being completely useless. Boone gets pissed at her, and she's like, fine, I'm gonna go on the hike.
Yeah, this was a total, like, paradigm shift for Boone, because Boone in the first episode was just, like, a bumbling idiot. And then now he's, like, delivering some, like, harsh reality to Shannon. Like, everyone out here is trying their hardest, and you're being totally useless.
Well, okay, but Boone was a bumbling idiot in the first episode, but he was trying very hard.
Yes, no, but the way he delivered it, his, like, delivery was totally different. In the first episode, he was like, oh, what about the pin? Maybe we should stab in the neck with the pin. And this one, he's like, you're being totally useless, and you're not helping. And that's like a total shift for his delivery. Very much
the difference between how he talks to other people and how he talks to Shannon, who he has very little regard for, right?
Yes, he does not.
He's Mr. Authority with her, but with everyone else, he's like, can I help?
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, that's pretty typical of their relationship. So we kind of assemble our hiking group all together is Kate, Shannon, Saeed, Boone, because he's gonna go and make sure she doesn't die.
Or get anybody else killed.
Yeah. And then Sawyer joins in at the very end.
Yep. Because we see Sawyer sitting in a broken piece of fuselage, like halfway through a cigarette, reading some kind of note.
Right.
Written in, like, blue ink. And he's looking very sad. And he stares off. And then he looks back at the group. And then that's when we show him, he's with the group now.
Right.
So he's got, obviously, like, they keep dropping little bits and pieces about, like, what's going on with each person. And so...
yeah, we're seeing glimpses of everybody's baggage.
Yes,
that's going to be developed.
Quite literally.
Yeah. At this point in the episode, I punched you in the arm several times as we start our hike and we get the adventure music,
which was hyped up before the episode.
I adore it. It's called Hollywood and Vines. It's actually the name of the song, and it's a theme that comes up regularly throughout the show. Basically, whenever we have a scene like this, that is a montage of hiking, climbing, treacherous journey,
pulling on roots and climbing on roots.
It's just a song that really makes me excited.
Yeah, that's fair.
Some really great, I've learned, Michael Giacchino. I know how to pronounce that name now. There are a couple of songs throughout the series that we hear a lot that just, I think, are really powerful. And this one, in particular, just makes me, I just get goosebumps whenever I hear it. I'm like, all right, it's adventure time now. Here we go.
The music so far has done a very good job of setting the tone, I think. Mm-hmm. So the way that the music sets up certain scenes and just, like, accents what's going on, it's not, like, intrusive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it was funny because it was hyped up before, and then as soon as it started playing, you started punching me in the arm because I was making a joke.
Yeah, you were about to do the unthinkable, which was speak over the adventure music.
So I got silence.
Cannot be allowed.
Yes.
Yeah, this show does a lot without a lot of dialogue in these moments. You know, just the way people look at each other and the framing of the shot with the music kind of just tells you all you need to know. And and we get the same with our adventure music. And as the hike is going on, we have another really interesting scene with your buddy Bald Man.
Yes.
Who I've been instructed to not tell you his name until it's revealed in the show.
Correct. So I still don't know Bald Man's name. Also, with the scar over his eye, I don't know why it makes me think of Snake Plissken from Escape from New York, or Escape from L.A. Kurt Russell's character.
Oh, okay.
But he has, like, it's like the stereotypical action star.
The action scar, yeah.
Vertically over the face, over one of the eyes, but the eye is okay.
Yeah.
I thought he was British. He's not.
I don't know why you thought that.
I don't know either. I honestly thought he was going to be like a retired RAF sergeant or something, but that's totally not what it is. I'm not. I can't really place his accent, but he is sitting down and essentially setting up a game of backgammon on the beach. And Walt, after Walt runs away from the horribly awkward talk with his dad about getting him a new dog, we see Walt approach him, and how does the conversation initiate?
So he explains backgammon to him and the history of backgammon, and then we have that pretty significant moment, which
huge.
You pegged as foreshadowing right away.
It was like if they had sold a peripheral to go with your television that flashed a red light at you when something important happened, it wouldn't have been more obvious.
They even zoom in on him for a minute and just hold that shot of him holding the pieces up.
They do a super rack zoom on his face, and he's holding up the two white pieces, and he's like...
A white piece and a black piece.
White pieces and a black piece, and he's like, the light and the dark.
Yep.
And there was like
Two
it
sides.
felt like a 20-second pause after he said light and dark.
Yep. So
huge amounts of foreshadowing there. And that I'm not like ridiculing it. Like, it was really cool the way they did it, but it was definitely like, hey, viewer, we are foreshadowing something here.
But then follows that with a long pause, and then, do you want to know a secret?
We want to know a secret, and then we cut away, and we never hear the end of that. So awesome.
We will. Don't worry.
No, I know we will, but like.
You gotta wait for stuff.
I know.
You gotta be patient. There's how many main characters to cover, right?
It's interesting so far in the show what they decide to pay off in the episode versus what is laid before, because there are so many things that get finished off like really relatively quickly. Mm-hmm. Like we've already, right at the very beginning of this episode, we find out, okay, Charlie is a heroin addict.
Right.
But then there's other things like this where it's just like this one comment they drop, and they have not addressed that yet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so do you want to know a secret? This character,
I do.
And I've been trying to think back on what my theories were when I was first watching the show. And do you want to hear what my theory was the first time I ever saw that?
Yes.
My theory was that he had some sort of prophetic vision of this plane crash onto this island. That's what I thought. I thought that he is some kind of super spiritual, I knew all this was going to happen kind of thing. So obviously I'm not going to reveal to you whether that's right or wrong, but that was my initial thought the first time I ever saw it. But clearly something is up with this guy, right? We remember last episode, he did
orange mouth, and
he was very zen.
Very zen, very like...
on day one of a traumatic plane crash.
No problem. I crashed the plane, and you know what? I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Time to,
So this could just be his way of... Coping with shock. He could just be like, whatever, this was all meant to be. We're all dead.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die here. So.
Oh, man.
Whatever. But
that.
Yeah, something's up with this man.
Yeah.
He's freaky. We see a scene that I just love. I just grin from ear to ear the whole time. When Jen offers Claire some of his seafood, which she absolutely should not have eaten. She's very pregnant, but whatever. She clearly tries to deny it, and then she's just being polite, and she takes a piece. But then she feels the baby kick, and she makes him feel it too, and he's really freaked out. But it's so cute.
Yeah, so that was a very nice way to do that, because he was very clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, it is, at least, I will at least give him credit for that, where he's like, hey, wife, button up, but also like, I'm not going to touch another woman.
Yeah.
So he's like holding himself to the same kind of weird standards. Like, obviously people should not go around wantingly touching other women's pregnant bellies, but like, she was trying to get him to do it, and he was still very resistant to it. Yeah. Which is pretty funny.
I mean, you'd be kind of freaked out if a random stranger was like,
touch me, touch my belly, feel the baby kick. Yeah, no, I'd be pretty freaked out.
Such a sweet moment, and such a relief for Claire. She feels the baby kick after a whole day, which is terrifying.
And it's interesting that, the seafood, like the sea urchins is what
sea urchin, yeah.
Because they didn't show like any kind of butchering or anything, but they showed them collecting sea urchins, and then they showed them prepping raw seafood, basically. So the only connection I can make there is that it's sea urchin,
right?
Which is unagi, I think is what the name of it is. It's delicious. I don't think you're supposed to eat that when you're pregnant.
No,
you're not supposed to eat raw meat of any kind, I think, when you're pregnant.
Yeah, not a safe bet. But she reminds me so much of me in that scene where she tries so hard to politely decline, and then she's just like, well, okay, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, you are marooned on an island, so
I guess you gotta eat something.
Point, you gotta eat.
Yeah.
Like, I think a little bit of mercury is probably the least of your worries.
Yeah, she'll be alright.
Yeah.
She'll be alright. So, this next scene... We hear some mysterious noises. Definitely not the jungle noises, but loud noises.
We shift back over to the hiking crew.
Right, yeah, so this is with the hiking crew.
And we hear some really frightening noises.
Right.
But they are distinctively not jungle noises.
Not jungle noises.
TM.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's no mechanical noises.
Right.
It sounds like something is
just
charging
something thundering
through.
Through. Yeah.
And I didn't even know what it was until they literally said what it was.
Yeah.
Because they obscured it very well.
There's a reason for that. They had a full-on shot of the polar bear, I think, originally, and it just looked so horribly fake.
So they cut it.
They're like, okay, we need to show as little of it as possible until it's dead and like not moving, because it looked so bad. But yeah, everyone runs away from it except Sawyer faces it down, and oh my god, he has a gun.
Yep. So Sawyer whips out what looks to be like some kind of 9mm pistol. Couldn't really identify it off the bat. It wasn't like like a Glock or something like that. It looked like it could have been some kind of Smith & Wesson M&P, but
the words you're saying mean nothing to me right now.
Okay.
But I trust you.
It is like I
trust you.
It looks like what they would, if they had to put together a standard issue 9mm, but they didn't want to use a specific brand, what they would use. Right?
Okay.
Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously now in TV shows, like, they use brand name guns all the time, but I don't know if there was maybe something there where they didn't want to do that, or maybe they wanted to give it like a little bit of a different look so people weren't focused on that. But I'm a gun
But Marshall was focused on it.
I'm a gun nut, so I was very much paying attention to what it looked like.
Okay, well, cool.
But the amount of, because I always, when someone, and this is really pedantic of me, but when there's a shootout in a show, I
focus more on the gun.
Well, I pay attention to how many shots they fire before they have to reload.
Oh, okay.
Like, because like that was sort of like the stereotype of like
unlimited
old shootouts
shots
where they would just be like, they have 6 shooters, which are called 6 shooters, but they just be pop, 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 pop. But he fires, I mean, probably like half a magazine, which is realistic. He would still have bullets left at the polar bear and kills it, which, well,
pretty impressive for a handgun versus polar bear.
For a handgun versus polar bear. What appears to be a 9mm. Also, he fires it with one hand in a strange stance that is not known for its a showy stance and not an accurate stance.
Okay.
So he's firing one-handed, reaching out like Han Solo, basically, shooting this polar bear, and he does manage to kill it. So,
well, it's important to kill the polar bear, but it's also important to look really cool while you do it.
Look really cool while you kill.
There's girls watching.
You kill a very rare species of animal. So he smokes it, and they come back over, and the big point of contention, besides the polar bear, is, hey bud, where'd you get a gun?
Right, where'd you get a gun?
And this is post 9/11, but you can still check guns on planes.
Right.
So it's not totally out of the ordinary if you were in a plane crash and
to find it in luggage
or especially if it was in your luggage and you checked it, you could go and get it. But what we discover is that he says he got it off of a U.S. Marshal.
Right. And then we say, well, how do you know that guy was a U.S. Marshal? Because I also took his badge.
Yeah, I also took his clip-on badge because I thought it was pretty cool.
And now that we know, I would love for you to watch this episode again, actually, now that we know that Kate was the prisoner, right? Because you can see her panicking.
Yes.
When he says, I got it off a U.S. Marshal, she's like, how did you know? How did you know he's a U.S. Marshal?
Well, but, and it's interesting because the way they set it up is that I thought the panic was like, how do you know it wasn't like another kind of assassin on the plane or something? You know, like you just found a gun on a guy. How do you know?
Yeah.
Well, we find out that Kate, so first of all, it's posited by Saeed, or who makes accusation that he was a prisoner
because you were the prisoner.
You were the prisoner.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say you were a prisoner. He says you were the prisoner.
Yeah.
And Sawyer denies it.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm as suspicious of you as you are of me.
Right.
Which is very true, I think.
Or he's claiming, he kind of flips it around. He says, oh, you're suspicious of me because I'm suspicious of you, basically.
Yes.
He's saying, you're only accusing me because I accused you earlier.
Yes. And then we see a flashback in which...
Well, first, Kate disarms him.
Correct.
She gets the gun from him, and then she says, does anybody know how to use a gun? And Saeed talks her through.
Insane, because she literally just, like, one hand disarmed him, and then she asked people how to use a gun.
She looks pretty proficient in getting that off of him, but then she says she doesn't know how to use it. Saeed talks her into how to disassemble it.
Which is... You know, I mean, she said, yeah, okay, drop the magazine, and then they didn't disassemble it, though. All they did was clear it. So, like, the slide is still attached, and if you put a magazine in it and racked it, you could fire it. So, they didn't disassemble it, but they did clear it, and then she gives the magazine to Saeed.
Yeah.
And then gives the empty gun to Sawyer.
Yeah.
Which is
interesting. So he can feel like a big man and have his gun back.
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why she gives it back to him.
That was a strange transaction, but...
Because, what if he just had more, like...
magazines.
Ammo or whatever. Magazines, I don't know.
I mean, an air marshal is certainly going to carry backup mags, and so if he pulled the gun off of the air marshal, he would have pulled the backup mags off of the air. So,
well, he says he took it out of a holster on his ankle.
Oh,
right? Isn't that what he says?
He said an ankle holster. That is a full size 9mm service weapon.
I don't know, Marshall.
No. I'm not accusing you. What I'm saying is that was a ridiculous thing that they said.
A ridiculous statement
because that was a full size 9mm service pistol that they said was in an ankle holster. That would be like walking around with like a Nintendo Switch on your ankle. So I thought that was pretty funny. That was not an ankle holster weapon. If it was, everyone knew it was there because it would look like he was walking around with a house arrest anklet on. So I thought that was funny. But he definitely probably would have had some more mags. But they clear the gun and they split the ammo and the gun up. Yeah. Which is something I've seen in I don't know if it's common enough to be called a trope, but it's definitely something that is happening when there's like one weapon and no one can decide on it. So they're like, we split the ammo and the gun, and then if something really hits the fan, then we'll join it together like Megazord. And then we can take care of the problem. Voltron, thank you.
I love this just sleazy moment as Kate's trying to walk away. Sawyer grabs her and says, I've been with girls like you. Yeah. She says, not girls exactly like me. And I'm just like, you're damn right, Kate. God, tell him. But also, like, he's kind of sexy, okay? I'm gonna say
okay, alright.
I'm gonna say that and then I'm gonna leave it. There's definitely some tension there.
Yeah, there's like sexual tension between
everyone on this island.
Everyone on this island, which, I mean, I guess, you know.
I mean, we're already on day 2. How have people not hooked up yet, right? I'm kidding.
Okay.
It was a joke. Okay, so now we see that important flashback to Kate on the plane where it's revealed that she is actually the prisoner that was with the marshal. And they have some talk back and forth that makes it very clear that they have a history together. Yes. Right? He didn't just arrest her in Australia and take her back to the US. They have known each other for a long time.
Yeah, he says something along the lines of, maybe they'll believe your story because I certainly did.
Yeah, I certainly did. Yeah. And then she says, I don't care what you believe.
Yeah.
We then hit turbulence. She says, I have one favor to ask, but then the plane begins to break up and we do not know what that favor is.
And he gets hit in the head by some kind of case that splits his bean open.
Yeah.
And then, one thing I thought was interesting was, so she's got handcuffs on, but then there also appears to be like a
zip tie.
A cable that is running from the chain of the handcuffs to what I would assume is like the underside of her seat. Mm-hmm. So she can't move her arms very far. It's like an airline version of a hobble. Mm-hmm. And so the oxygen masks deploy, and she can't reach them because of her hands like that. So she is able to, after he gets conked in the head, she pulls the keys off of them and opens her handcuffs up, gets her mask on, and then, helps him. Yeah. So she follows the rules, first of all. Help yourself before you put your mask on, before you put somebody else's on. And even though his head he's got a significant head wound, and you probably could have written him off at that point, which obviously is not the case because he survives. Right. She still puts the mask on him, which goes to show that, like you said, there is definitely a history between the two of them beyond just he arrested her.
Well, I think it shows that there's a history between them, and there's obviously he arrested her. There's animosity there, but it seems like not necessarily because they have history, but kind of in spite of that fact, she still chooses to help him, right? So she's a prisoner, but it kind of seems like with a heart of gold, maybe.
Well, and also, like he said, at some point he believed her, and so she might feel bad about, I guess, essentially betraying this guy at some point.
Okay.
Like if she lied about, it's implied that she lied about something and he found out.
Okay.
So she feels bad about betraying his trust and still chooses to, help the person that has got her in handcuffs.
Right.
And then the end of that scene is it shows the tail coming off.
We see the longest shot we've seen so far of the actual incident. And what did you think of that? That
was wild.
Plane breaking apart. I think she might be one of the few characters that is, like, conscious for the whole thing. So whenever we see, because I think we see more, like, we show a little bit more maybe with other flashbacks in her in the future, but we see so much of the plane crash itself with her, whereas the other ones we've seen so far and some more we see in the future, it's really just like, oh, this is the moment where it starts to happen. But with her...
And then they get knocked out.
Yeah, because she mentions in episode 1, I was awake for the whole time. Thing. Yeah, so we really see the whole thing with her, which I think is just terrifying.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, like, when they lose the tail of the plane, like they establish the break apart happens after they start descending very rapidly. Mm-hmm. So they're descending and then they lose the tail, which would have the tail stabilizer. And typically what you would have there is now only lift from the wings, which means that the rest of the plane would either spin around the wings with nose up or nose down. But it continues in a constant direction, which is interesting. It might just be something that they shot that way.
Yeah.
Or it might hint towards more of the fact of this being an engineered crash.
Okay. See, these are things that I did not pick up on because I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. So they basically like there was that whole thing with the Boeing 737 Max crashing multiple times, and it was because of a software that was aggressively manipulating the tail stabilizers and forcing the plane to go down when it shouldn't have.
Okay.
And that's the biggest failure you can have in a plane is if those fail, the tail stabilizers.
Okay.
Because they have like multiple backup systems. They even have like a manual crank that they can fix the trim with because those are so critical. So like seeing the plane lose that and then the people in that center section still survive is like a big thing.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. We see back on the island our hike party. They are trying the transceiver again, and there is a bar.
Yeah.
But
and this is so dark.
I know. So someone
dark.
else is there's something else transmitting on the island. So even though they have a signal, they can't broadcast anything because their transmission's being blocked by this one that's already going. And so I wrote down exactly what they say. It's a French woman that Shannon translates. It says, "Please help me. Please come get me. I'm alone now, on the island alone. Please someone come. The others, they're dead. It killed them. It killed them all."
Yeah, and then at the end of it, in an English voice, it says iteration number, and then the number of iterations.
Right. Yeah.
And then Saeed does the math, and then we get some more numbers.
Yeah.
So it's 16 years and 5 months that based on the iterations stated by the voice.
Yeah.
That is how many times. That's how long that distress signal has been
playing.
broadcast.
Yeah. So we interpret that
really spooky.
Really spooky. We interpret that to mean that whoever broadcast that was never rescued, never found, because they say,
why would it
still be broadcasting? Right. So spooky. Charlie says, "Where are we?"
Yeah.
And then boom.
Yeah.
The end of the episode.
And that did not feel like a full episode. Like all that stuff happened.
I know.
It was like bam, 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 bam.
You wanted it
like
to go on longer.
That was 45 minutes already.
I know.
Jesus.
And I'm pretty sure that 16 was the only incidence of the numbers in the episode, unless you're right with the tapping of Charlie's ring. That could have been, but I wasn't paying attention to that.
I wasn't either.
So yeah, usually we have more than that, but this time it's 16 years the French woman has been playing on a loop.
Well, we also see before that, or I can't remember if it was before that scene or after that scene when Jack pulls the shrapnel out of the guy and he wakes up.
Yes.
And he goes,
"Oh yeah,
where is she?
Where is she?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the marshal that survived.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's exciting.
Yes.
So
the marshal survived after poor Hurley fainted from watching. I mean, hey, that's pretty gruesome. He watched a big chunk of metal get pulled out of the guy's ribs.
And I mean, he warned Jack.
Yeah.
"I'm not good with blood." And Jack said, "Just don't look."
He was like, dude.
He says, "Dude, I'm not so good around blood." And Jack says, "Well, then just don't look." And he goes, "Yeah, but dude, I'm not so good around blood." And then, he passes out.
Yep. He, poor guy flops over.
I know. And poor Jack. Oh my god. So, that was pilot part 2. Ah!
Yeah. It escalated. Escalated quite a bit.
Yeah. So, some of the things you predicted last episode, you predicted that this one would focus on people other than Jack, which it definitely did.
Yep.
There's very little Jack in this episode. We got flashbacks of Charlie and of Kate instead. However, you were wrong in thinking that we would learn more about jungle noises. Are you disappointed? Or was there enough? There
were no jungle noises.
Right, there were no jungle noises. You thought that maybe in this one we would kind of learn more. Not really learn what it was, but at least...
Well, I would say by learning... this is going to sound like fake deep, but by learning what it's not, we learn more about what it could be, right? So we learn that it's not a polar bear, and not a dog, and not like a transmission, right? So we can cross those kind of things off. And they also moved through the island over what I can only assume is a long period of time, because they had to scale a small mountain, and did not run into any of that.
Okay.
So... But I still will say I was incorrect in saying we would learn more explicitly about jungle noises. Because there were no jungle noises.
Right.
TM. There were noises in the jungle, but not jungle noises TM.
Yeah. We saw, what, as Charlie says, a teeny tiny version.
Yes.
When we see the polar bear. So tell me about that polar bear.
That was a huge, another big old twist.
We're on an island in the South Pacific. We don't know where.
Yeah. So,
there's a polar bear.
Yeah, there's a polar bear. Man. So, I think I originally said last episode, or was it episode 0 where I was like, the island can reshape itself.
That was last episode. So one of your guesses
propositions for jungle noises.
Jungle noises, yeah, is that it's the island itself kind of shifting.
Reshaping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we got this 16-year transmission, which they could only pick up when they went up high, which could mean any number of things. It could mean that it's coming from another up high place. It's also weird they couldn't pick it up on the beach if it is coming from the island. Mm-hmm. I'm not a radio engineer, so...
Yeah, I don't know enough about that to critique it, which maybe they were kind of relying on.
I think so, too. That's fine. I mean, I'm fine with suspending disbelief.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah, so I think there's going to be these, like, anachronistic / geological... What would you call that? Geological paradox?
Okay.
Or something where, like, there's a polar bear on an island in South Pacific. It'd be like finding a penguin in Birmingham or something. Outside of a zoo.
Right, yeah.
Is very strange. Shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Obviously, so basically what I can infer is that it was put there, or the way that this island functions produced it? I don't know. Like, okay. But it's a great way to, like, okay, there are animals on the island, but it's the wrong animal.
Right, yeah.
For
something
the island.
That should not be there.
Super should not be there.
Yeah.
Also, it was, like, hyper-aggressive, which I know polar bears are some of the most aggressive. Yeah. But that's normally because they are really living from meal to meal, which if it's on, like, a plush jungle island, it maybe wouldn't be. But I think that they probably did that just because it was like an action thing that could happen.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a huge twist, and I honestly have, you know, it certainly didn't clear anything up for me.
Yeah. So yeah, you think it was either put there or produced by the island? That's interesting.
And by the island, I mean, like, it could be like, you know, the thing running the island.
Yeah,
or like, you know, like if the island is some kind of machine or something, you know, or if the island takes bits and pieces from other locations and moves them there, or if the island is linked via wormholes. I'm really going on a limb here.
No, go for it.
You know,
do you think it could be like a Bermuda Triangle kind of thing?
Sure, yeah.
Like things just
disappear,
go missing and show up there.
Yeah. So they're okay. Oh yeah. So they're like, maybe there was a ship carrying animals going somewhere and they wrecked and it had a polar bear.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's an option. I mean, it definitely gives Bermuda Triangle vibes because it's like a mysterious.
Right. Mysterious.
Crash.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's funny. That's the first time that Bermuda Triangle has come up in my own mind. Was you just
saying
it right now? That's not a bad thing, but it's interesting that I didn't immediately think of that.
I think that was I mentioned, I think, sort of outside of recording, that I would kind of pepper in, like, here's what the popular fan theory was at the time, and I think Bermuda Triangle was one that may or may not be correct, that people...
Where's Bermuda? Not in the South Pacific, right? Isn't Bermuda in the...
Don't ask me.
Oh, boy, yeah.
One of our spouses is going to message us and be like, you dumbasses.
Yeah, hey, Larissa, cut this out. I'm gonna, if I'm correct, okay, keep this in if I'm correct. I think Bermuda is in, like, near the equator south of us, like, around the other islands that people go to down there that I can't think of the names of.
Like around the Caribbean?
Sure.
Okay.
Just
cut this out.
Oh, I was right. Yes.
Oh, good. Okay.
All right, keep that in because it makes me sound
well, we don't need the audience to know that I don't know where Bermuda is.
Yeah, cut it about what she didn't know.
No, just kidding. Okay.
Just say, oh yes, Bermuda. It's down in the Caribbean.
Yeah, Caribbean. Bermuda.
Oh God, I was trying to help you out there.
Sorry.
All right, fuck it.
It's just all doomed.
That whole section was bad.
That was doomed. Okay.
Okay.
Were there any standout favorite or least favorite characters in this episode?
I really liked Hurley's parts in this episode.
Hurley?
Like you said, he's kind of I can't remember the word for it, but a stand-in for the audience.
Yeah.
Where he is, like, talking and, like, getting parts of these different characters to come out just because he is, like, just a nice, non-threatening guy.
Yeah.
I like that.
And his reaction to Sawyer, especially in this episode, was very much the audience's reaction to Sawyer. He says, some people have problems.
Chain-smoking maniac.
Yeah. Chain-smoking jackass.
Chain-smoking jackass, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that Bald Man finally talked, and when he finally talked, it was cryptic as...
Yeah.
So, I like that when he did finally talk, it definitely kept in with his character of not apparently being super concerned with the fact that he is stranded on an island after a violent plane crash.
Right.
He's setting up a game of backgammon and explaining it to a small child, and so that was really cool. Mm-hmm. Sawyer was funny. The whole like profiling thing is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But I understand it's like a source of conflict.
He's a sleazebag and he's racist.
Racist, yeah.
So not great.
Not a great start for Sawyer.
Not a great start for Sawyer. But was he
Good
your
with the
least
gun.
favorite? Was he your least favorite or was Shannon your least
Shannon's
favorite?
definitely.
There's another rough episode for Shannon here.
Man, Shannon's not doing herself any favors.
She did our translation for us though.
Yeah, like they finally gave her a thing where it's like, okay, well, I guess if you were dead, we wouldn't have been able to help. So,
yeah.
but
she didn't actively hold anybody back during that hike. Yeah.
But they haven't made it back yet, so.
You're right.
I'm not gonna hold my breath.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely super annoying, but I kept with her character from the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, yeah, favorite character of the episode is probably a tie between Baldman and Hurley.
Yeah.
His favorite is Shannon, followed up by Sawyer purely because of the racism.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
But again, I think it's a given the time period, it is not a ridiculous thing for a person to do. Given if this is supposed to take place when it was shot.
Yeah, especially the kind of man that clearly he's supposed to be, right? To be
and
that
suspicious. It's 3 years after 9/11.
In 2004 to be that suspicious. Yeah.
Of a Muslim, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so he's not even, I mean, obviously, I guess
right.
we can assume he's Muslim because he was in the Iraqi army and statistically he would be Muslim. But someone who looks like a Muslim, he's suspicious of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not a ridiculous thing, and it's an interesting point of conflict. You know, it's important to have
conflict. I think it's very realistic that in a plane crash like that in 2004, someone would have been like...
Someone's going to look for the nearest brown person and be like, hey, it's your fault.
And, of course, it's going to be Sawyer, but...
He was a redneck.
Yeah. He's filling that role.
Yeah, he's filling that role.
Do you have any burning questions after this episode that you want to see answered? Not questions for me, like to clear things up, but questions that you want to see answered, such as, where did the polar bear come from, right?
Well, yeah, where did the polar bear come from? Are there other animal, really weird... Are there other animals, period? And are they all going to be geographical paradox animals like the polar bear was? Are we going to see I'm trying to think of a weird... Like a western hognose on this island? Or a European... Some kind of European swallow or something weird. You know, also, I hope they find the origin of the transmission that they found. Even if it's not I'm going to assume it's not the person that attached to that. I'm going to assume the person attached to that is not alive, but it would be cool if they found
where it's broadcasting from.
Because it's been going for 16 years, and the whole thing was we got this transceiver, and it's got a limited battery.
Yeah, so maybe we'll find a power source.
Well, yeah, but the other thing is okay, well, how have these people been getting it to go for 16 years and 5 months? Right. When we can't keep it on for 10 minutes without everybody shitting their pants about it. Yeah. So, yeah, and then, I mean, obviously there's all the other questions, but that's something that definitely I would like to see resolved. I don't think it'll be next episode, but... It
will not be next episode.
Okay.
The big, deeper questions, the questions that we get more immediate answers to are kind of solving the personal mysteries of each character, right? But I would say kind of the big ticket questions, such as what are jungle noises, what is that polar bear doing there, and the transmission, those are going to be some kind of longer term mysteries that you're not going to get instant gratification, but I think you will be satisfied when we do find out what's going on.
I also was expecting when they picked up that transmission, for that transmission to be the lost numbers over and over again.
Oh, okay.
What were those numbers, by the way?
It's 4... You're going to write them down?
No, not the lost numbers, but the transmission numbers.
Oh, the iteration? Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Oh, because it was counting up.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Because at first I was like, oh, it's a this and a that, and if I add these together and subtract something, does that give me a number?
Maybe if... I wouldn't read into it that deeply.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I'm so suspicious of every number
so good.
In
it makes
this
me
show.
So happy. It makes me so
skeptical.
Happy.
I'm like, oh, Charlie's tapping. Count the taps.
Yeah.
The plane is shaking. Count the shakes.
I love that your instinct was to go there. That is so good. Keep that. Cultivate that.
Yeah. This ridiculous obsession with every single sequence. Yeah. So obviously those things are going to take longer to pay off.
Yeah.
But,
do you want to know? Are you dying to know? Like I was at this time watching it first time. What it was that Kate did?
Oh yeah. Yeah, okay.
Why is Kate
arrested?
A prisoner.
Correct. Yeah, because that's true, because somehow I assume that's going to tie into
and
her
probably
purpose on the
a
island.
pretty high profile prisoner. She was captured in Australia, being transported back to the U.S. So I mean, there's probably been some kind of manhunt for her, right? I mean, they're transporting
woman
her.
hunt. Thank you.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, that's true. I do want to know I want to know the crime, and if the crime is what's relevant to, because I'm assuming that every little character detail we get somehow ties to the island in some way.
Okay.
And if the crime is going to be what's the significant part, or if the circumstances surrounding it, like the manhunt and the people involved in it. Like, if she's like some kind of financial criminal, like a white-collar criminal, that's not as interesting as if she's like an international assassin or something. You know what I mean? So that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also not... We're not going to get an immediate payoff for what she did, but we will learn what she did.
Okay.
Actually, there is an episode called What Kate Did.
Seriously?
So there you go, yes.
Well, that's pretty... They really spoil the...
So we will learn.
Bearing the lead.
Eventually. Speaking of episode titles.
Tabula Rasa.
Yes, you saw it on the screen.
I saw it.
You weren't supposed to. Yes, the next episode is called Tabula Rasa, which means blank slate or clean slate.
Is that Latin?
Latin, yeah.
Okay.
So, who do we think the next episode is about?
Well, I read the description. It's about Kate.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's the thing. So is the entire episode... You said that moving past the pilots, the episodes are going to get very, very character-centric.
Yeah, so I will tell you, especially if we're about to go watch it right now.
Oh, that's for sure.
It's going to be very much... The episodes will be more evenly split between flashbacks and time on the island, right? So far, we've seen a
Mostly
brief
time on the
glimpse
island.
of each character, like, on the plane before the crash. But going forward, we're going to see them before ever getting on the plane, like see flashbacks into their lives. So it's going to be more, I don't know if I would say 50-50, but much more of the episode will be dedicated to their time off island or before island.
Pre-island.
Pre-island. So yeah, so next episode we'll be learning about Kate.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm going to be interested to see if Tabula Rasa is a reference to the fact that now she's crashed on an island, that she gets a clean slate because she's not in custody, or if she was given the option to like make a deal in terms of her crimes to get a clean slate. Okay. And she didn't, and that's why she's... Well, I mean, you would still be taken back to the country where you're being charged. Even if you were taking a plea deal, they would still take you back for processing. So that, I'm curious to see as if it means, I am in a plane crash now, so I get to reinvent myself, hopefully, or has something to do with the crime. Yeah. Or maybe she committed the crime to get a blank slate. Okay. Because of the stuff she did in the past. Like, yeah. She wanted to, maybe it's identity theft. Or she's not Kate, she's Barbara.
Barbara. God, I wish her name was Barbara.
Barb.
Do you, other than those guesses about what we might learn about Kate, do you have any guesses about next episode? Any predictions? I guess I kind of let you know. Those big questions we're not going to get immediate answers to.
Yeah, that's...
But that's not to say we're not going to kind of see more.
Well, I assume that it's not going to be like we hear nothing about it and then, it's this. It's going to be like they're going to be filling in the puzzle every episode with like little bits and pieces that give you a better idea. And then finally something will come together. Yeah. They're not going to like abandon the idea of jungle noises for an entire season. Right. So I think we'll get some of that, but especially if it's going to be more off island, then I think it's going to be interesting to try to see what ties in, how much more referential stuff is there going to be, like looking for the numbers and looking for the foreshadowing outside the island.
Well, I think maybe we should go watch it.
I think so too.
And we will be back talking about it next week. I think, especially after hearing this French transmission, it is very important that we all remember that if we can't live together, we're gonna die alone.
Hello, Jungle of Mystery fans. I'm Larissa the editor, here to let you know that Bermuda is about as close to the Caribbean as Tennessee is. And also, you can now listen to Jungle of Mystery on most major podcast platforms, including Google, Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. Find us on social media at Jungle of Mystery on Twitter and at Jungle of Mystery Pod on Instagram. We are still quite new to this, so if you have feedback for the show, please reach out on Twitter or email us at jungleofmysterypod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Enjoy your flight.
So, roll Tide.
Oh,
we might cut that.
No, don't cut that.
Okay, we'll figure that out in post.
Screw the Tide.
Oh, God.